All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next session of the day. Let's talk about climate change. It is a global challenge, but the responsibility for addressing it remains deeply contested. Developed economies demand rapid decarbonization. Developing economies seek the right to grow. So how do we bridge this very gap and this divide? We're asking these questions in our next session. Panelists joining us for this very session. Take a look.
The story of humanity is not decline. It is progress. We have lifted billions from poverty, extended life expectancy, connected the world. Now the next chapter begins. This new chapter for our planet is not about retreating from growth, but refining it. Cleaner air in our cities, smarter water management, waste turned into resource, energy that is abundant and reliable. Sustainability is more than a slogan. It is engineering, it is policy, it is design. The question is not whether development must slow down. The question is how innovation can accelerate solutions. How do we build cities that breathe better, industries that waste less, infrastructure that lasts longer? It is time to move beyond fear. It is about capability, science, technology, capital, and real thought leadership. Planet Pulse, where progress meets responsibility. For this panel of Planet Pulse, we are joined by Ashok Khosla, founder and chairman of the Development Alternatives Group. Ashok Khosla has dedicated himself to creating sustainable livelihood models in India and globally. Also joining this panel is Chantal Theron, Head of Learning and Development, Lancers International School. She brings over 37 years of teaching experience and more than 15 years of leadership within international school environments. Also joining this panel is Ratnesh Kumar, Executive Director of ONGC. He has over 3 decades of experience in ONGC handling turnkey projects, including Petrochem. Former Norwegian Minister of Climate and Environment, Erik Solheim. He is credited with merging development and environmental agendas, promoting high levels of foreign aid and pioneering international rainforest conservation in Norway.
A round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. While Erik Solheim will be joining us virtually, we have another Erik moderating this session. Erik, it's over to you.
All right, so welcome to this session and thank you all for participating in this summit. We're talking about Pulse and the planet, how it's changing the world. And before I engage my panelists, I want to ask the audience right now, with a show of hands, before we start this discussion, do you think climate matters? With a show of hands. Good. Then we're going to have fun in this discussion. My panelists, thank you very much for making time for us and welcome to this session. We're going to talk about how climate is changing the narrative. We've heard about climate change, we've talked about development goals, we've talked about how climate change shapes our everyday life. But we need to talk about how climate affects you and me and everyone in their daily life. And not just because of leaders or anything, it's you and me. It's about you and me. Mr. Erik, namesake, I'll start with you, but before I start my question, we just want to hear how you sound. Hala?
Happy to be with you. I'm so sorry I couldn't be physically there because of the flight disruptions caused by the Iran war, but I wasn't in there last week, so happy to be with you digitally.
At least we see how you sound. I'm also called Erik, so I'll be referring to you as namesake, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So let's talk about climate action. Do you actually think that the narrative has been changed by the West when it comes to talking about climate change and climate action?
I think the narrative has completely changed. Look, in the past, Europe was in the lead. Now Asia, particularly China and India, are in the lead. And in the past, it was about diplomacy. Now it's about business. Look, last year, China added 315 gigawatt of solar energy to the grid. How much is that? Well, that is 12 times the entire grid in Bangladesh. It's 10 times all the hydropower we have ever made in my nation, Norway. It's big, big, big. But India moved to the third place as the third largest renewable power in the world. I'm sure India will soon take the second spot, passing the United States of America. India added 40 gigawatt of renewables last year. Again, that's, for example, 4 times the entire grid. 6 times the entire grid in Sri Lanka, which is a middle-sized country. And there are enormous developments in the green space all over India, and it's because for the first time in human history you can combine ecology and economy. It's not a choice. In the past, if you wanted to go rich, you had to base it on fossil fuels, but now you can go rich, prosperous, bring everyone out of poverty, buy solar, wind, hydropower, electric cars, electric scooters, and all the fantastic new technologies which are all available.
You're talking about fantastic renewable energies, but let me ask you this. Is the Global South being asked to develop under constraints the West never faced?
But look, that was true in the past. Because in the past, if you wanted to develop, there was only one way. Coal and oil and gas. That's why everyone did it. It started in the United Kingdom, it spread to Germany, to America, to Japan, Korea, China, India, everywhere. If you want to bring everyone out of poverty, you base it on fossil fuels. But now solar energy is the cheapest energy everywhere in the world. If you go solar, you save money. There's more money left for education and health in India if India goes solar. Added, India becomes much less vulnerable to the global volatile oil market or to the Strait of Hormuz. It's energy independence if India goes solar. And that's why it's happened. Look, in the desert of Gujarat, the Adani group will make a solar plant which is 30 gigawatt. That's the largest in the world. Very recently, I was in the state of Andhra Pradesh, where a somewhat smaller company, Greenco, has established the largest combined solar, wind, and hydropower as battery facility in the world. There's nothing like that in the United States. There's nothing like that in Europe. Only developing India happens because it's a combination of growth and ecology. And it works like that in the daytime when there's plenty of sun in Andhra Pradesh. They pump up the water into the upper reservoir. There's no river, just an upper reservoir. Then they release the water at night. And then they have 24 hours renewable energy in Andhra Pradesh. And look, the Greenco Group plan 5 such facilities by 2030. Next is in Madhya Pradesh. Then is Karnataka. Then is UP. And the Adani Group has similar plans. So India's moved from the back seat to the front seat. And that's of course because Prime Minister Modi understands very well there is no longer a choice between economy and ecology. You can do both.
All right, hold on to that thought, namesake, because I'll come back to you a little while from now. Let me engage my panelists here in India. I'll start with Mr. Ashok. Do you agree with what the minister is saying? And before you answer that, you've spent decades advocating sustainable development, but looking at climate negotiations today, do developing countries like India feel empowered or pressured?
Well, I think today countries like India are actually the champions, the ones that are driving the agenda and forcing the pace, because they realize that their future is at stake. In fact, their present is at stake. What is going on today as we speak in the Gulf is an indicative of what happens if you do not have a resilient economy. And if your economy is vulnerable to shocks from fossil fuel availability, from materials, from varieties of other things, technology, economic finance particularly, then you will always be at the wrong end. So frankly, if there is a driving force today, it is the developing countries, and if there is a resistance, is there pushback, it's actually from the north. It's the people who started the dialogue, who identified the problem, and then chickened out. So we need to understand that if it were not for countries like India and the African nations who are suffering the most from climate change, it would be, the international dialogue would be much slower at the moment than it is. So I'm glad to say that we are actually playing our role.
How can we bridge the gap? Because that has been always the conversation when it comes to climate action, climate change, world over. How do we bridge the gap between empowerment and also being self-defeated, as you may?
Well, you know, the gap has largely been caused by who gets the benefits and who pays the costs, and how much does it cost. The price of money that the industrialized countries had to pay when they were developing their big technologies and their so-called development is not the kind of money that poor countries are paying today. We're paying 3-4 times as much interest for our capital that they did before. Unless that gap can be bridged, the other gap will never be bridged. So we really have to now restructure the global economy in a manner that it will make it possible for those who need and can bring about the transformation of their technologies and economies to being climate friendly, they can access those resources.
I'm sure there are many people who are asking right now, who are watching this and are asking, what is an educator doing in a panel discussing climate? Well, climate matters to students. It's part of the curriculum. It's part of what they study. It's part of their DNA, so to speak. Chantal, am I right? So how do you teach young people to know their surroundings, to know their environment, to know what matters to them when it comes to issues like climate?
Thank you. So I would say that it's a very different world. As you know, I've been doing this for 36 years, and when I went to school, we were taught don't litter, switch off the tap when you're brushing your teeth, Make sure you don't waste any food. Finish your plate. And these were lessons that we learned and we followed along as our parents told us to do. But we were breathing clean air. We were drinking fresh water. And we could play outside in a clean environment. So those were lessons that we took on board as much as we knew this was important in a way, and it was part of our learning. But today, our children are living in what we created. They can't breathe the air. They cannot drink water out of a tap. They don't have the same experience we did as jumping on a bicycle and riding for miles and enjoying the fresh countryside with your friends. And they are living in this situation. So having to teach them, I don't think it's their reality. It's their reality to say, Miss Chantal, we can't go and play today. The AQI is too high. Don't drink that water. We need to use only this water. This is very real for them. And instead of us saying we need to teach them, they are the ones that are teaching us by saying, what have you done or not done? Why is my world like this?
I'm just curious, what are some of the questions they ask you? Because these are students who want to learn more.
Yeah.
They don't want to be taught because they know.
Well, I think it's more about them questioning, and this is very important in the way we teach now, right? Or how we facilitate learning. We don't know all the answers. They have a lot of questions, and it is our responsibility to show them where to find that information. So question, why is it like this? How did it become like this? What can I do to change it? Those are the questions they're answering. And our responsibility as educators, and you must remember that the parents are the primary educators of all the children here. So what you model for your children, that's what they take on board. And our children want to know, how can I'm only 10 years old, what can I do to make a difference? And they are coming to my office and they are bringing ideas like, can we put up signs about switching off the taps? Ms. Chantal, we've noticed a lot of waste in the cafeteria. Can we do a little presentation about food wastage and separating wet waste from dry waste? Can we put together some ideas about recycling? And these are 10-year-olds. They're taking this seriously. They want to live in a cleaner, greener, and kinder world. And we have to support them in these efforts.
That's why I began by asking my audience here if climate change matters to them. And you could see from the show of hands that it does. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Does climate change matter to pupils, to students? Yes or no?
It matters insofar as this is the world they have to live in, and they do care about having a world that is cleaner, greener, kinder, and a better place for everyone in the future. Our students absolutely care about the kind of world they will leave behind one day. They do want to be better.
All right. I'll come back to you, Chantal, in a bit more from now. Mr. Ratnesh, I'm very sorry to keep you waiting. But now I think we can talk about the rise in demand when it comes to energy needs. And so many people asking, how can we balance the two competing pressures that we are having in the world right now? Because that's the pulse of the world right now. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, thanks. So that's a very complex trilemma which you are asking. On the one hand, we have energy security, then economic growth, and climate, the decarbonization goals. So is there a simple answer to it? No, there isn't. There can't be. And it would be different for developing worlds, for the developed world. So what is India's strategy going ahead in this, if you look at? So instead of phasing out, you have to go phase down for the decarbonization. And if you look at the energy mix of the current energy mix of India, so coal is around 48 to 56%. No, oil is 28%, gas 6 to 7%, then renewables 11 to 14%, and nuclear is 1 to 4%. So coal still is the backbone. For the grid power also, you require a base load that can be provided by coal. Renewables, though it is 11 to 14% only, but the installed capacity, if you look at, we have surpassed 51, the renewables now comprise more than 51% of our installed capacity. So that's a great thing which has happened. And the 2030 goals which India had, we have already achieved that target in advance. So it is happening over there. Now, as Honorable Minister was here, he was explaining, alone solar or wind cannot do. You need battery storage system, BESS. You need PSP. As he was explaining, that Greenco, what they have done is they have solar as well as pumping storage. Because solar is not available always, it's intermittent. So going ahead, it will be more in the mix, we will be seeing that. Now, what are the demand drivers? You see, in India, number of GCCs are coming up. So these GCCs, the back end of the offices of many majors are coming over here. ExxonMobil is here, BP is here, and so many others are here. And in fact, in Vizag, it's going to be GCCs. So they're all energy guzzlers.
Hold on to that thought, because I want it to be more engaging right now. When we talk about fossil fuels, I think that discussion is slowly fading away. And now there's a discussion about oil and gas. I'll come back to you, namesake. I hope you're still there. Mr. Minister, there you are. I just want to ask you, should energy companies still be investing in oil and gas if the world is serious about net zero? Namesake, can you hear me?
Oh, are you speaking to me? Oh, sorry.
Yes,
sorry. Yeah.
I was speaking to you. You had dozed off a little bit there.
Sorry.
Welcome back.
I thought you spoke to an Indian minister. Look, yes, there will have to be some investments in oil and gas also in the future, but the priority will be renewables. Look, last year, something remarkable happened. For the first time in modern history, coal emissions started to decline in India. And it started to decline in China exactly the same year. Look, except for COVID, coal emissions have increased year by year in all modern times in both China and India. Now they're starting to decline. Why is that? Because the renewables are taking off at a very high speed. And they're taking off not so much for ideological reason as simply because of scale and economics. It's the cheapest energy anywhere in the world. Adani told me that in the deserts of Gujarat, it's now cheaper with solar energy with battery storage than it is with coal. And when you have that cost prediction, everything is changing because everyone wants to go solar just because of cost. I was quite recently in the UP, and the people there, they are now installed in some small green mills. They have installed solar panels on the roof. Well, in the past, they paid 40,000 Indian rupees a month for diesel. Now they're paying 15,000 rupees a month for solar. Well, everyone wants to do that for his or her family, for the business, for the community, not just because of climate and environment, but because it's also very, very good for local pollution and for global climate efforts.
Namesake, stay with us. I'll come back to you shortly. Mr. Ashok, I want to connect you with Ms. Chantal, and it's about students, it's about education. Should climate literacy become a fundamental part of education globally? Your thoughts?
Well, I think climate as a subject is important enough to rate a subject topic for all education systems. I started my career as teaching the first course on climate and environment at the university level anywhere in the world. And I believe very strongly that that is an important set of issues. However, it's not only climate. We really have to deal with the more fundamental issues that led us into the climate problematic. That means we have to recognize that not only are we facing huge existential threats from climate, but from species extinction, from biodiversity loss, from ecosystem degeneration, from virtually almost on all fronts, and not least from the pervasive, extreme, and unwarranted poverty that exists in this world. So if we're not going to deal with all those issues, I don't think the climate is going to be saved. Climate is a symptom, is a product of a badly designed development pattern. So if we're not going to have as a subject what you might call the responsibility of citizens to redesign their expectations, their value systems, their aspirations for a world in which everyone can benefit. Because at the moment, all our educational systems are geared to promoting greed and egocentric value systems, which are obviously going to end up with not just climate change, but with the loss of almost all the species that we depend on, and on our water systems and on our energy systems. And you know, today, if you watch the television and watch what's going on in the Gulf, you have to recognize we're very vulnerable. It's not just climate that's doing it. Our systems are so vulnerable that climate is going to be a very major impact on our lives, but so is everything else.
Right.
So we've got to be very careful in redesigning our educational systems to bring the individual and society center stage in all our thinking. The responsibility of every citizen for a better world to be left behind.
Chantal, I know you want to react on that, but before you do, are we equipping young people with the mindset and skills to deal with this new reality? And yeah, you can either agree with Mr. Ashok or disagree.
Oh, no, there's full agreement here. Thank you so much. So in 2015, 182 countries of the United Nations got together and said, we have to do something globally. And they created the 16 Sustainable Development Goals. 17, because the last one is how this is all going to come together and change the world. And children in our school and in schools around the world are working year by year, focusing on each one of these goals. Gender equality, poverty, food for everyone, justice, peace is actually the one we've just done. And it's heartbreaking to see what's happening in the world right now, when our children have just been focusing on peace and justice for all. It includes resources, climate awareness, waste, and really caring about what happens to the world one day, including what happens to our climate, but also how we treat each other and how we respect each other and how we make that world not only greener, but kinder too.
I want to bring you into this discussion because it's going on the right trajectory, I may say.
Yeah.
But to you, is climate diplomacy today being shaped more by geopolitics than by planetary urgency?
It's a very tough question which you have asked. So there is an urgency, you know. The climate we all are facing. And we know, as she told, initially we were told we were used to drink tap water, we used to close it. In India, when we used to travel, we used to drink tap water directly at the stations. Now, we all carry Bisleri and bottled waters. So there has been a change, and we are experiencing it in this generation itself. What we used to think that we used to take it for granted, you know. So as Mahatma Gandhi famously said, nature has enough for one's need, but not for one's greed. So that balance, you know, which is inherently...
Would you say that again? Say it again, slowly.
Yeah, I'll say it slowly. So what he said, that nature has sufficient for one's need, but not for one's greed. So if we become greedy, then obviously nature reacts in its own way. Long back we had studied in economics, there was a Malthus population theory, which said that if the population increases more than what the nature can sustain, nature balances it. Some earthquake, something would happen, so and nature balances that, you know. So nature has its own ways of doing it. But having said that, I am in oil and gas business, which is inherent contradiction between climate and this, you know. But a change has come. There is a significant change which has come. We are looking to decarbonize our operations, and of now, we are not only into oil exploration. We have become a truly integrated company. We have diversified into renewables. We incorporated a company in 2024, ONGC Green Limited, and we acquired Ayana Power, so 4.1 gigawatt of solar, and again PTC, so our total capacity of yours, that was in a joint venture, so 2.45 of gigawatt of renewables we have, and our target is 10 gigawatt by 2030. Likewise, we are moving into diversifying into SMR, which are nuclear small modular reactors, nuclear, solar, wind, and geothermal also we are exploring. So lot many things. Now we have integrated into a truly energy company, I would say, rather than only oil and gas. Yeah.
Our time is almost up, but I want us to do a quick test because we've been talking a lot. So now we need to talk very fast and very quickly as we wrap this session up. Namesake, I'm coming to you. This is a very quick question, quick answer, quick response. What gives you the most optimism about the climate transition today?
That's exactly the enormous progress in the developing world, and in particular in the two largest developing nations in the world, India and China. 10 years ago, Europe was in the lead. Now China and India is in the lead, and they are dominating solar, wind, hydropower, and all the green technologies. And that's the cause because there is a strong public support for it. I attend a lot of conferences where Prime Minister Modi is the main speaker, and I'm one of the other speakers, and his message is always the same. In the past, there was a choice between environment and economy. There is no longer such a choice. India can do both, and he says India can bring everyone out of poverty, India can shine on the international arena, and India can make a large middle class, but India can do it by going green.
Mr. Minister and namesake Erik Solheim, thank you very much for your time and for joining us today. I'll come to you, Mr. Ashok. What is the single biggest gap in global climate governance?
Obviously, most of these issues have a global aspect, and they're not issues that can be dealt with by a local community or by even a nation on their own. So we've got to have a global system of governance that cares about everybody's welfare rather than simply a particular part of the globe. And we don't have that at the moment, and if we don't change the present systems of global dialogue and global decision-making, I don't really see how we could do much better. It is only going to be by the pressure of those who now are emerging on the global scene, which Erik Solheim just now was talking about, which is going to push the agenda forward and the participation of all those who matter. So I believe that we've got to now create a whole new system of governance. The UN is a wonderful construct, but it needs to be strengthened to do the right thing. And that is only going to happen if all of us, particularly the citizens, and particularly the young who we're talking about educating, are going to take their role seriously in making that happen.
Mr. Ashok, thank you very much for your time and for joining us today. Ratnesh, question to you. What technology will transform the energy sector fastest?
Energy sector, as of now, as Honorable Minister Namesake was also explaining. So there are 4 pillars of decarbonization which I see. One is solar, and today if you look at India, we are at 140 gigawatts. At another 50 we expect by FY26 itself. So there we have progressed a lot. And then if you look at small modular reactors in nuclear, what I see, moving to nuclear, so there also a lot of work is going on. And as he was explaining, Honorable Prime Minister, they have come up with a special act for Shanti Act, which they provide duty concessions on items to be purchased. And then apart from that, I spoke about carbon capture also. So that is also one thing on which the budget has been laid of $2.2 billion. So these 3-4 pillars which are there, solar, then carbon, and then SMR, nuclear, these 3 are going to be the game changers. And in coming time, I'm sure the way we are moving, we have more, as I told you, 51% installed renewable power. Though we are not able to use it because of grid limitations, or you need some battery storage, because grid you need stability. So in the times to come, more shift would be towards renewables, and we will have both energy security and economy also going along with it. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Ratnesh Kumar, ONGC, thank you very much for your time and for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
You will have the final word today, Ms. Chantal. What mindset must the next generation adopt?
Well, not a mindset to adopt. I think they already possess this mindset. This is a generation that has grown up in great uncertainty, a lot of stress and anxiety from their parents. They're not sure why the world is the way it is, and they're not hopeless. They don't feel that they need to give up. They want to fight. They want to make things better. They want to make a difference, and we need to support them in that struggle.
Ms. Chantal Theron, thank you very much for your time and for your insights, and thank you all for your time and for your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, my panelists.
Thank you also for having moderated this. Thank you.
Thank you to all our panelists. A round of applause. And to Erik's namesake, Erik Solheim, who had joined us. I'm afraid now he's popular and loved as namesake Erik after this session. But thank you very much to all of you. I'd like to invite our managing editor, WION, Mr. Rabin Sharma, to please felicitate our guests, a token of appreciation from our side. This has been an engaging and interesting conversation. And we've only learned from it, especially you, ma'am, talking about students, young minds, who should be learning. All of us should have learned all of this at a very young age, but I'm glad that the world is now beginning to realize that it's the young minds we need to talk to more when it comes to climate change. Mr. Solheim, thank you very much for joining us. Next time, I hope you can join us here, right here, physically. But thank you very much. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our panelists.